Home isn't just a place, it's a feeling. Whether you're at home, your business, or online, ADT helps keep you safe. With security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home, wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling. ADT. Home. Safe home.
This is the Best of Mike and Mike podcast. Subscribe now by going to the Listen tab in the ESPN app.
The Best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are. We are back and better than ever. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. We welcome you to a new week and lots of fun to be had and lots of games to be played. We'll get to the fight and more in just a moment. But first things first, Mike, there's only one place to begin today. A great American city, the place you began your professional football career, is underwater. Our thoughts are with all of our friends in Houston. I've had wonderful times in that city over the years with you at the many events that we went to. But unlike you, I never lived there. Yeah. You did for several years.
Yeah, several years. I mean, that 610 loop, what would you see pictures of? I drove that every day, going to practice. And it was a place I got drafted in 1985, was there for a little over 2 years. And the devastation there is unreal. And to know it's not over, to know they have more rain coming. And it's always horrible to see the tragedy that's out there. But what is amazing, we always talk about how great our first responders are, and they are fantastic. They're the people running towards the trouble instead of away from it. But to see so many neighbors, so many normal, regular people, not police, not firemen, who obviously they were doing an incredible job, but neighbors checking on neighbors, and friends and people who don't know each other trying to help one another. Seeing that, just seeing the resolve of people, whether it's by boat or wading through the water. I mean, I can't even fathom the devastation. And then you hear, don't be going in the water because there's alligators. I mean, it just keeps going. That's like almost a movie. That of how bad it is, and yet people are living it. So many people are living it down there. There's nothing I can say other than our thoughts and prayers are with you, and obviously help to donate all we can. J.J. Watt started to raise money for that. His goal is $500,000. He's already raised a couple $100,000. I'm sure it's more than that already. I'm sure others are going to do it as well. So we all just can help how we can help. I'm sure there's going to be so many people descending upon Houston, trying to help when they don't have, where they don't have enough. But you just watched the clip of that, and then to know that it's not over, to know that they're getting more rain is just, it's devastating. It's absolutely devastating. So obviously our thoughts and prayers with everybody there, and as they said, everybody's checking on their neighbors and so many people helping. I mean, that is so great to see, but such a tragic event and such an aftermath of what people are going to have to deal with. We know we've already lost a couple of lives down there, and that's, you just pray it doesn't happen. But unfortunately, it did here, and you hope no more are lost. But it's you look at it and you can't believe it. You just can't believe that it happens that quickly and the water is that high and people have to, cars are the water's higher than the cars and the street signs. It doesn't look like it's possible, and yet people are wading through it and trying to get out of it as quickly as they can.
I'm looking at J.J. Watt's, Houston Flood Relief Fund for victims of Hurricane Harvey, and he's got almost $280,000 raised of his $500,000 goal, and there'll be more. And there are a lot of sports ramifications, if you will, of this storm, of teams not playing and not traveling and not getting here or there. And, of course, that's the least of it.
Yeah, it is. Right.
Nothing could be less significant in the big picture than the fact that the Astros may not be able to play a home game this week or whatever it is. They have far greater concerns. So, again, for all of you who are there, be safe and all of that. I know, obviously, you have far more important things to do than watching or listening to our show today. We'll try and keep those who have gotten out of there entertained as best we can this morning. But, of course, all of you in Houston, we've had so many good times. We were just there for the Super Bowl. And
we were.
There for the Final Four recently. And, again, you lived there for a couple of years.
Started my NFL career. I loved that town. I really, really do. And it's just horrible to see. So any way you can help, if you can, if you have the ability to then this is certainly the time to do it.
In the meantime, we will get to the sports news of the day, and there's a lot of it. Let's go off the top, and it starts with Giancarlo Stanton. Mike, we're still in the month of August, and he has hit 50 home runs. He hit his 50th yesterday. He's now on pace for 62.
Yeah, really incredible. 50th home run. It's the earliest date of the 50th home run. He is now, 2, 4, 6, 8th in that. Barry Bonds in 2001 did it by August 11th. Stanton, obviously, by the 27th. And there's the McGuires and Sosas a couple of times. Maris and their Sosa a few times. Unfortunately, again, for Stanton and all of this, that's the names he's going to be associated with in these lists. Take out Maris, obviously, nothing with him, but McGuire, Sosa, and Bonds. As he goes up this list, most home runs in a single month is 20 by 1998 by Sammy Sosa. So Stanton still has 4 games to go, and he has 17. So we'll see if he tries to get near that as all. So we'll see where he ends up. As you mentioned, 62. And he's the one who had mentioned 61. Others had mentioned 61. Roger Maris is 61. We know that's not the record, but it certainly seems to be that kind of number hanging there. I don't think anybody believes he's going to get close to that 73 number, but 61 certainly is in reach. And it's a guy that seems to be so well respected around the league, and at least from my eyes, I know the size of him, and so it's the first thing a lot of people think. I don't believe there's been PED talk following him throughout his career.
No, nothing that doesn't just there is the general, well, who knows who's on what anymore.
Right.
But outside of that, there's nothing specific. I did see a few interesting arguments related to this and indirectly to him on Twitter this week. Hembo sent me something I'll bring in
Off the top,
a little bit later. Meanwhile, congratulations to the kid from Japan. They won the Little League World Series, Mike, for the fifth title, I should say, for that country in the last 8 years.
Yeah, they beat Texas. Texas actually had a 2-0 lead. I think it was on 2 home runs up until about the 4th inning. And then Japan hit 3 home runs, I think, in that inning and just went on to go. Chinese Taipei has won by country 17 titles, Japan 11 titles. This particular team, Kitasuma, Tokyo Kitasuna, this is their 4th title as a team, so the most by a state in the United States winning is 7 titles by California. They made a championship game 23 times and 7 titles, but congrats to the team from Japan.
Off the top.
Dustin Johnson won his 4th PGA event this year, his first since March. He's now out in front in the FedEx standings. He and Jordan Spieth had a fascinating day yesterday in Long Island.
Well, I mean, that's what you look for, right? You're looking for 2 guys like this to be paired up on a Sunday, and then it went to an extra hole. Yep. It not goes to an extra hole. So now, not shockingly, as we go for somebody trying to win the $10 million, the FedEx Cup, these two are 1-2. Matsuyama, he was first going into this, but he missed the cut, so he dropped to 4th. In this, so we'll see where it goes. But this is what you look for. Dustin Johnson, I mean, remember early on he won in February, won twice in March, and then basically disappeared, wasn't playing well.
Because he fell down the stairs at Augusta, and that was the end of that.
Help. Yeah, one fall, and that's it, and all the way till August before he gets his next win. But what a nice win for him.
Yeah, I find myself a little more interested in the FedEx Cup this year than I have been in recent years. We'll see if that continues, because we're about to go into the avalanche of college football this weekend and the NFL the weekend after that. But I did find myself watching a lot of this over the course of this weekend, both Saturday and yesterday. And Spieth had a 5-shot lead at one point yesterday, gave it all back and winds up losing in the playoffs. U.S. Open begins today. They're on the courts in Flushing Meadows, and Roger Federer, among others, will be playing.
And he's the favorite. One of the reasons, year-end ATP rankings of 2016, the top 5 players.
And no one else is playing.
None of them are in the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
All are out because of injury. So Roger Federer is looking to break a tie with Jimmy Connors and Pete Sampras for 5 U.S. Open titles. He's looking for his 6. He's the 5-4 favorite right now.
And he and Nadal are on the same side of the draw.
Yeah,
I was with Chris McKendry this weekend, and she does the tennis for us here. And no one knows it better than she does. No one loves it better than she does. And I was yelling at her. I was like, why can't they just fix that? Why can't they just go 3 and 4 could go on either side? Why can't they just fix it so that Federer and Nadal will be on opposite sides of the draw? You're not changing anything.
No, you're not, especially with the top 5 players out. So it would have been
Murray's
nice to have
there.
them.
Djokovic is not there. You want Federer and Nadal to always have a chance to play in the final.
I agree. And then on the women's side, Serena Williams obviously not playing, and so it's pretty wide open there. one of the differences here, different than the French Open in this major, is Maria Sharapova will be in the U.S. Open.
Off the top.
All right, Vontaze Burfict is facing a 5-game suspension for an illegal hit. We'll get into this a little bit. You need to see the play.
Yeah.
For those of you listening on ESPN Radio, when we have this conversation, we'll try and figure out a way to send you to seeing the play. Obviously, we'll show it for you on TV over and over. I'm really curious to hear, Mike, your take on this, because there's a difference between dirty. There are 3 different things a play can be. It can be dirty, it can be unnecessary, and it can be illegal.
Right.
An unnecessary dirty play doesn't necessarily have to make it illegal.
No.
So, to me, it looks unnecessary and it looks dirty. The question of whether it's illegal or not, I'll leave up to you.
Well, I mean, we do need to get into this a little bit, because the ball was in the air, but the pass wasn't to the back coming out of the backfield. Does Burfict see the pass in the air? There's a 5-yard chuck rule the last I checked in the NFL, and he hits him 1 yard down the field. He hits him square up. He is square to the line of scrimmage. Now, the back running out is turned a bit looking in case he gets the ball. Burfict hits him square up with his shoulder, runs straight at him. Now, the ball was in the air. I guess technically you could say, even though the ball wasn't to that receiver, it gets a little muddied for me. I know they've we've had the defenseless player rule, but they've even kind of tweaked it a little bit more this year, and that's why they're saying he may get fined for this. The Bengals are completely on Burfict's side. And listen, this is a guy that a lot of times you don't jump on his side. I think he has 16 roughing the passer or personal fouls. He's been fined almost $1 million, so he rarely gets the benefit of the doubt. The team is behind him saying this was a straight-on shot. We'll get into it a little more, because I'm even trying to digest where this is illegal, dirty, finable, suspendable, and where it's going to end up.
Off the top.
As it stands now, we believe he could be suspended 5 games. Finally, DeShone Kizer, no surprise here, will be the Browns starting quarterback for their season opener. In a little while, we'll play you Chris Collinsworth explanation from when he was on our show last week of why this is the right decision, in my opinion, regardless of anything else. You got to find out about him, and to paraphrase what Collinsworth said, next year is a year with 1 million quarterbacks that everyone is dying to take. So the Browns have to find out this year whether or not they have a quarterback.
I agree, and there are those that said you could have found out, let him sit for a few games, halfway through the season and then get an eye for it. But you know what? My thought is always, if the guy you think he's not a deer in headlights, he's ready, he's making the right reads, he's putting you in the right situations, and we'll get into this more and more, especially in that Hugh Jackson offense as well. But you look at the rookie quarterbacks, he's starting, Deshaun Watson, numbers-wise, was the worst of the 4. But a lot of times you don't look at numbers. You look at how they're throwing the ball, and they throw it to the right guy. Glennon's going to be the starter in Chicago. They just had that 3rd preseason game. He looked sharp in that game. Trubisky looked good at times and like a rookie at times. So Glennon's going to be the starter.
He threw one gorgeous touchdown, though. Trubisky.
Oh, he did.
I didn't see the game, but I saw
I saw the game.
He dropped it in the bucket.
I saw the game. I saw a lot of games. The 30-minute compressed game watching is awesome to be able to see all the games. Glennon, not even close, in my opinion, outplayed Trubisky in that game. Glennon will be the starter, I believe, for the Chicago Bears. We may wonder how long that may happen, but I think it's all settled as far as rookie quarterbacks. We'll have the one starting in Kizer.
And that, my friends, is Off the Top, which is brought to you by Zipa. Go to Zipa.com. That's ZYPPAH.com. Get a Zipa so you can stop snoring and enjoy the summer. All right, in a word, the fight. We waited. Yeah. I can't say we waited years for it. We didn't even wait months for it.
We didn't wait that long.
In that regard, and maybe all others, unlike so many other fights that we have looked forward to and watched, I would use the word satisfying. I was satisfied with what I got.
I was satisfied. I was entertained. I got, for those that wanted to spend the $100 or not spend the $100, I did. It was after, Chris finished her walk. We were out in South Bend doing that, and it was, you almost had to nap before this thing because the fight was right around midnight. So that's kind of what we did, and we got up and we watched this fight, and I was entertained by it. And I remember my official pick was early, like I think the first 4 rounds. But in watching that fight, I completely understand why it went like it did to Mayweather's game plan. A figure, you look at him, there was a size difference. McGregor is just flat out bigger, and after they weigh in, the amount of weight they can gain.
What do you think he weighed when he stepped into that ring?
They were saying he was in the 170s.
Yeah.
The possibility of him being, I don't know that for a fact, but these guys gain a lot of weight after their weigh-in. And when he hit that early uppercut on Mayweather, you thought, oh, my Lord, he put a pretty good shot on him. But as the fight went on, listen, I am not a boxing aficionado. I watch as a casual fan like all others. And you saw Mayweather figuring him out, hanging back, arms up against the ropes as McGregor was trying to, throw the hard punches, kept bopping him on the back of the head. We can get into that as well. That was somewhat interesting. Sometimes you can't take the MMA out of the guy, and I don't blame him. But then all of a sudden, what about that 4th, 5th, 6th round? You saw Mayweather start to go forward, start the beginning of the bell of the round, go forward, and started to figure him out. At one point, you heard his dad in the corner said, listen, I think it was a 6 or 7 round. He said, you can take him whenever you want now. And he was right. He was right. You could see McGregor's average fight time in his last 10 fights was 8 minutes. And Mayweather was 33. That was one of the first stats we threw out there. When this fight was going to happen, Hembo gave us that stat as one of the first stats we threw out, and it turned out to be the most important one. McGregor just didn't have the stamina, and you could see it. You could just see the tide turning, and the scorecard by the time it ended was way in advantage of Mayweather. A lot of people thought maybe too much, but McGregor wasn't going to outpoint Mayweather. He was going to have to knock him out. And what you saw as the fight was going on is McGregor, he's not a boxer. The analysts were saying it, and I was and listening to them and watching, saying, okay, while he's bigger, he doesn't have the angles yet and the leverage for his punches to be really, really effective. Early on they were, but before he started to get tired, but then that kind of wore off. So after the fight, when I'm hearing, oh, could he be a boxer now? This takes years. I mean, we can't disparage the boxers here and what you learn over years of boxing, of leverage and punches and fights. McGregor, I thought, did an excellent. I thought he represented himself incredibly well. He was bummed that the referee Bird stepped in at the end, but the ref did exactly what the ref is supposed to do in boxing. This isn't MMA where you tap out or submissions or get choked out or knocked out or thing. This is boxing where the referee's job is to protect a defenseless fighter, and that's exactly what he did. So he stepped in, and I know McGregor said, hey, let me get knocked out. Let me get knocked down. I agree with the ref stepping in. He was defenseless at this point. But I was entertained.
He hadn't thrown a punch in about the last minute and a half.
It was like the first 2 rounds when Mayweather was figuring him out. Mayweather threw like 12 punches in the first 2 rounds. McGregor actually threw more punches in this, but Mayweather connected on more. You could just see the tide turning. You could just see what Mayweather was doing. And it shouldn't be shocking. He's a boxer, and McGregor is a fighter. And that's what he tried to do. And so I think from about the 5th to 6th round on, I had lost then hope is the wrong word that McGregor was going to get that one punch because he just didn't have the power after that point to really be able to land anything at that point. And Mayweather just started moving forward and was just boxing and was just connecting. I mean, how aggravating it's got to be every time you turn. You got a fist in your face. You're eating leather, and it just steamrolled. And then you could just see his legs were going on him, and couldn't keep his arms up anymore. And you see how in shape you have to be to box and to keep your arms up and to keep moving for that long. It just absolutely took it out of McGregor.
No question about the statistic that you brought up to go all the way back to the beginning. I never thought was going to become a factor because I didn't think it would go that far. I thought Mayweather would just take him apart immediately, and he didn't. And so there were a couple of different reasons why that might have happened. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. You can test drive Snapshot, see how much you could save before switching to Progressive. Visit progressive.com/snapshot. And to use the now popular on Mike and Mike Occam's razor, the most obvious one is McGregor just did a better job than we thought.
He did. He absolutely did.
And Mayweather, I think, it is a sweet science. And I think he went in there with a game plan, which is I'm going to take some time to figure him out.
Yeah.
I thought he would go in there. I said on Friday, you weren't here. I said on Friday, Mayweather doesn't strike me as the kind of guy who's going to be worried about, did we put on a show to entertain the fans?
Right.
This is his last fight anyway. He's getting his money. I believe it is his last fight.
I do, too. There's no way. There shouldn't be a rematch. I wouldn't even buy a rematch, and I don't think there will be a rematch.
And there's no one else for him to fight out there that there's hundreds of millions of dollars involved in. But and so maybe he couldn't put him away faster. And I thought he could. Going into what I thought, I listened to so many of the experts say he can basically do whatever he wants to him in the ring. And maybe the answer is he couldn't. It wasn't as easy as that. Maybe the other answer, though, is he actually just said, what's my best way to win the fight? Not to put on a show, not to make a statement, not to do anything else, but just to win. And the best way to win was to exhaust him, to figure him out, and then take him apart.
I agree. And I tell you what, I give McGregor a lot of credit in the beginning. There were going to be those that are saying that was just Mayweather making it go longer than it should have and not knocking him out early. I think McGregor was bigger. McGregor had that reach, and McGregor kind of kept him away. It was kind of unorthodox, and it took Mayweather just – I think Mayweather just said, you know what? I'm going to be patient. The only way I lose this is when McGregor has his most energy, which is the first couple of rounds, right, when he can really land a hard punch. But after that, probably that fourth round – I didn't see it anymore. I mean, McGregor was still kind of going decently, and after the sixth, it was done. But I think McGregor then lost that ability for that. We were all looking for that one-punch knockout, which maybe could have happened in the first couple of rounds. I think Mayweather did exactly what he wanted to do. I'm just gonna figure him out. He's gonna die, and I'm just gonna outbox him.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Here we are, Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. That'll be busy this hour. Brian Custer from Showtime Boxing will join us in a couple of minutes. And then Woj will be here. Not so fast, my friends, on the Kyrie Irving trade. We kind of had this coming. I remember I said to you last week, what happens if the Cavaliers and their doctors look at Isaiah Thomas and that hip is way, way, way worse than they thought it was? Now all of a sudden it appears that's exactly what happened here. So could the trade be off? We'll find out from Woj in about a half hour.
Here comes an extra draft pick coming the way of the Cavaliers to try and get more compensation. We'll see.
Is that enough for you, though? I mean, if you're Cleveland.
I don't know about the hip. I mean, if you're telling me Isaiah Thomas isn't going to be able to play till halfway through the season, that's what Woj will tell us. There's a lot that has to do with when you think he's going to be able to play. One quick plea for me. I did not see Game of Thrones season finale last night. So no spoilers. Let me just make sure Herman's not on the show today, right?
No Herman today.
Herm Edwards is not on the show. Okay. So
He's been banned on any morning after a Game of Thrones
episode. And this was a big one. Listen, it's on me. I tried to stay up for it. I stayed up late the night before watching the fight. I tried to stay up. I was watching the Minnesota-San Francisco game, and I was going to go right into Game of Thrones. I just got too tired, so I thought.
So you know nothing?
I know nothing. I'm going to bag it. Ray, you and I were in makeup. Ray came in and almost started, then asked me. He assumed I saw it, and I didn't. And it would be my own fault. For a season finale, I don't know if you get that 24 hours. I think it's really incumbent upon me to stay away from any kind of Twitter to know what happened until I get home and watch it, because it's the season finale. That's a big one.
You know what I noticed? It almost felt Greeny-esque the way you were talking to Ray, because you started by saying, I didn't see it, so don't say anything.
Right.
Just tell me one thing.
Yeah, I started asking questions, yeah.
Okay, I don't want to know anything else. Just tell me, did this happen?
Yeah.
And I don't know the people and the characters in the show, so I couldn't define all the questions you were asking. But you asked, did this one and that one get together? This one, that one fight.
A couple of questions I asked. Ray's silence was deafening.
But you got no one to blame.
I know.
You
could
right. not resist asking the questions.
You're right.
So I thought he did a pretty good job, all things considered, of not responding.
Well, no, he did a nice job. If it were Herm, he'd have told me what happened the entire time.
Well, Herm, I saw it. He just blurted it out. Oh. And it turns out it was extraordinary. Like Rosebud was the sled. Okay, I'm not telling you anything that important, and then you sort of get on with your.
What did you say?
Trust me. It's the movie Citizen Kane. Spoiler alert: the movie was made 75 years ago. So I think that I'm okay on the spoiler rule on that. I'm not sure when exactly what the statute of limitations is on Orson Welles movies.
Right.
But considering he's been dead 50 years, I think we're probably safe on that. So either way, the point is he let go a big one. You were asking all kinds of questions. I don't watch the show, so I'm okay.
Yeah, I need to just stay away.
It is the number 2 trending topic on Twitter still.
Listen, there's no doubt about it. And I heard it was fantastic. I heard it really, they got a lot in. It was, again, I think a little under an hour and a half. One more season, and that's it. And I think there's only 6. There was only 7 episodes this year. I think there's only 6 next year, I believe, to end this thing. So, and the ratings obviously are just going to be monstrous on this thing. So I'm looking forward to getting home and seeing it. The wife is down and out. She finished that walk. She feels great physically after the 320 miles, but she got a horrible cold that she is trying to get over. She's so bummed. She's like, my legs and feet feel great. It was a great experience, but she's got a bad cold, so we're just going to set her down, drug her up, let her go to sleep, and then I'll watch Game of Thrones.
Does she watch Game of Thrones?
No, she does not.
Okay, so she won't care that you watch that without her, but congratulations to Chris, who walked,
320 miles it turned out being 320.
And I thought that I must say, your courage in walking those 3 with her on that last day was really remarkable. We were all very proud of you.
It was without question the 3 hardest miles. It was all uphill, and they kind of figured it out through their algorithms that 3 miles came out to about 180 miles of what they walked. So that's kind of what it equated to.
All right, yeah.
So I am the man.
All right, yeah. I thought you did just great there. You really brought a lot of pride. All of us on the show were very proud of you.
Yeah, I'm sure you were.
But she raised a whole bunch of money, too, for a homeless charity
25K,
in
actually
South
26,000 or something. So it was a great job. We appreciate everybody who donated to that.
Well done. Okay, Mike and Mike, Brian's ready to go. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Customers who switch to Progressive save an average of $500. Call or click today and find out if they could save you hundreds on your car insurance. And I will tell you right now, joining us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line is the happiest man in the world because he was in Vegas doing the fight on Saturday night for Showtime.
Yeah.
So he didn't have to watch Christian Hackenberg and the Jets in their preseason game on Saturday night. Here's Brian Custer with us on Mike and Mike. How are you, Brian?
Man, I'm great, Mike and Mike. How you guys doing? You know, an ode to you, Greeny.
Yeah.
I will say this, that on our way to the arena, we walked out and we had a security guy who was walking us into the arena. This guy come running up to us, and the security guy stopped him. He said, no, I just want to speak to Brian really quick. He said, Brian, who has more wins today, Conor McGregor in rounds or the Jets in wins this season? And it stumped me. I was like, wow, I had to think about that one. I had to think about that one.
Whoever that guy was, he has a better idea of blitz pickup than Christian Hackenberg does at this point. But that's neither here nor there. All right, let's get to your real job here, and that is we were trying to – I used one word to describe the entire event Saturday night, and it's the last word I was expecting to use. And the word was satisfying. I was very satisfied with what we got, and that's so – unfortunately, with boxing, that seems to be the exception rather than the rule. What was the overwhelming reaction that you heard from people in the 36 hours since the fight?
I think you can use that word. A number of the McGregor fans were satisfied with the way that he performed. I think the Mayweather fans were more surprised that this fight went that long. And I think you guys may have been on vacation, but the last time I was on your show, your guys asked me, and they said, how do you think this fight is going to play out? And I said, I really think Floyd will stop him. And they made up the point. They said, look, he hasn't stopped anybody in 7 years. And I said, but yeah, it's the accumulation of punches that's going to hurt McGregor. And furthermore, this fight cannot go past 25 minutes. That's the longest Conor McGregor has ever fought in the octagon, and it was against Nate Diaz, and it was that fight that he won. But if you remember that fight, guys, he nearly gassed out. I mean, he hurt him in the first round, he hurt him in the second round, and then Nate Diaz just came on in that third, in that fourth, and in that fifth, Conor McGregor was holding on for dear life, and that is exactly what you saw in this fight. He was great in the first 3 rounds. Me personally, I know a couple of judges gave Mayweather, I think the third round. I gave Conor the first 3. I thought he was great. But then you could see towards the very end of the third round, especially into the fourth, he started to tire. And I think that mental pressure from Floyd Mayweather just continuing to come forward at him got to him, and it was the accumulation of punches and the fatigue that ended up stopping this fight.
Last 10 boxing and MMA fights for both of them, Mayweather average fight time was 33 minutes, McGregor 8 minutes and 38 seconds. So, yeah, everybody felt that conditioning was going to play a part of this. Do you feel the referee did the right thing by stopping the fight? We're getting a lot of people saying the ref should have let it go further.
Yeah, listen, I hear what those people say. And listen, Robert Byrd's he's a great official. He's a great referee. And you know what it was? He was protecting Conor McGregor. I don't think he didn't want to see him getting hurt. And if you remember, he was getting hit flush with some big punches, and his head was getting snapped back. And I think the last thing he wanted to see was Floyd connect on another combination and send this guy to the ground or send this guy through the ropes. It was all about protection. That's just one of the things I think an emphasis in boxing now is try to protect the fighters.
Yeah, I agree with that thought completely. I think the people who are complaining about the stoppage are probably more MMA fans who are used to there's a difference in when you're defenseless in boxing versus defenseless. When you're defenseless in MMA, it's basically because you're unconscious.
Yeah.
And when you're defenseless in boxing, you are exactly where McGregor was. There's no question that he made the right decision in ending it. Here's where we need your help, Brian.
Here's the key when it comes to boxing.
Yeah.
If you are stopping a guy and the ref steps in boxing, a guy will immediately argue with the ref. You will see him say, no, don't stop that. I was ready. If you remember in that fight, and I'm sure you guys have the footage, as soon as Robert Byrd jumped in and stopped it, listen, Conor McGregor's arms was down. He didn't shake his head. No, he was done. So there was even no argument at all that came from Conor McGregor. The only time he did that was after the fight was over and he had time to be interviewed by our Jim Gray. That's when he tried to, say, okay, I got my fans here. Let me just go ahead and make it look good and say, hey, let me go out on my shield. Well, he certainly didn't say that after Robert Byrd stepped in and said, this thing is over. I mean, Conor McGregor just sat there and said, had that look on like, look, I'm done. Thank you.
Mike and Mike, Brian Custer is with us, Showtime Boxing. So as we try to figure out what McGregor's next step could be, well, let me actually ask you the first one. Do you believe Mayweather is done? He said afterwards, there's no question it's his final fight. Both Mike and I believe him this time. Do you? Do you believe we've seen the last of Floyd Mayweather?
Yeah, I think so, because I think Floyd realizes this was probably the only guy that can get him that 9-figure payday that he was looking for. There's no one else in boxing that can do that. There's some fantastic fighters still out there. Errol Spence, Keith Thurman. There's some great fighters still out there. But listen, if Floyd fought them, maybe $20 million, he's not coming back for that. And it's a shame that we say that because that's a lot of money. But he's only coming back for 9-figure paydays. He's done.
All right, and so that we agree with that. And so then on the other side, you get then to McGregor. And Dana White said he would like to see McGregor's next fight and all the rest of his fights, however many there may be, back in MMA. Is there a fight for McGregor, if you wanted to, is there a fight for McGregor in boxing that would be a huge payday? Nothing will rival this, but is there a huge money fight for McGregor that exists in boxing right now?
I don't think so. I think if Conor is going to fight again, it's going to be back in the octagon. And you're right, Dana White said his plan is to get him back in the octagon by December. And if you're Conor McGregor, obviously this is just even enhanced your stock there. I think, his next fight in MMA, he could probably make $5 million, because obviously all those fights are pay-per-view. If he fights somebody in boxing, who could it be? I mean, there's really no one unlike Floyd Mayweather that's going to draw you that kind of big money. And I'll be honest, if he fought anyone that is active now, it would not go past 4 rounds, to be honest with you. So if I'm Conor McGregor, I'm going back to the octagon.
Completely agree. That if he actually got in there with someone who had some knockout power, you're right, it would be done. Well, on that note, I mean, one thing this fight did do, they went about 17 days before the Alvarez Triple G fight, September 16th, and you wondered, is that going to have any effect? Do you think that's coming up September 16th, boxing the world looking forward to that match? Will this pay-per-view have any effect on the buys for that one?
Here's the great thing about it. I think because this fight was, as Greeny pointed out, so satisfying, I think boxing fans were already going to buy that fight anyway. Obviously, this fight endeared itself to the casual fan. So I think even though I know that the promoters of Triple G and Canelo were upset that they did this fight basically a couple weeks before theirs, because they were nervous that this would turn into another Mayweather-Pacquiao from an action standpoint and would hurt the sport. I think it enhanced the sport. So now I think you will probably get more people inclined to buy that fight when it comes up now on September 16th.
I actually agree with that. I think that you might get some of the MMA fans who were watching that fight for McGregor, right, Brian, who might not have otherwise been that interested in boxing, who said, you know what, this was actually fun to watch. If I've got the money, I'll plunk it down in a couple of weeks. And so this might actually wind up bringing people into the tent in the way the last huge fight of this sort that we're thinking of, which is Pacquiao and Mayweather, they sent people away.
because you know with Triple G and you know with Canelo, you got two guys who are going to do nothing but come forward and slug it out. And if you love action, and UFC fans love that, MMA fans love that, let me tell you something. I'd be hard-pressed to see that Canelo-Triple G fight going anywhere past 5 or 6 rounds, because those two are going to just stand right in front of each other and say, okay, let's go. Let's see who's the strongest. Let's see who's the best puncher, and just slug it out. That's action. I think that's exactly what you're going to get when you watch that fight.
Looking forward to that. Brian, well done. Thanks so much for the time here. Well done over the weekend, and we'll see you again soon. Take care.
Appreciate it, guys.
That's Brian
Thanks,
Custer
Brian.
with us. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance, and Brian was on the Shell Pennzoil Performance line, taking synthetic motor oil performance to a whole new level. Make the switch to Pennzoil Synthetics today. Let me ask you a question. Which will there be more? I don't know exactly how you quantify this, not just in the paydays for the fighters themselves, but in whatever way we do this, the Alvarez Triple G fight, or McGregor's next fight in MMA, whatever that winds up being, which will be the bigger event?
Wow. See, I don't – I'm trying to remember numbers from the big MMA pay-per-views and what they would get.
And again, that's only one way of measuring it. I clearly, it's the most important way for them.
I think I'd go boxing.
That will be bigger than McGregor's next MMA fight.
Yeah.
See, I think that there will be more mainstream coverage, and by that I mean coverage outside of – even in traditional sports media. Like, I think that shows like ours, we're about as mainstream media as it gets in the sports world. I think shows like ours will cover the build-up to the next McGregor fight more. If this fight hadn't happened,
did you say the next McGregor or the next MMA pay-per-view?
No, McGregor. The next McGregor fight in MMA. I think because it's McGregor, there will be more mainstream coverage.
That's a good question.
Of whenever McGregor, assuming he does, and he does relatively soon. I mean, you got to sort of strike while the iron is hot. I don't know how long they go between these fights in MMA, but however long, as long as he does it in the next, basically the next few months, I think that there will be more attention given in the buildup to McGregor's next fight than there will be to this fight, even though the boxing fan, the true boxing aficionado will tell you this is as good a fight as can be made in the world.
I don't know. I think this fight, and I agree based off what we saw Saturday, I think this fight's going to do pretty well. I do.
This fight, the Alvarez Triple G fight.
I'm absolutely getting it. I know that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. But we sometimes assign everything in this to star power. So, I mean, Alvarez and Triple G, the people who know the sport will tell you they're the best fighters, but neither one of them is a quote-unquote star.
Not a name
neither
like
one
McGregor
of them could walk down Broadway and everybody knows who they are. Conor McGregor, everybody knows
exactly
who
right.
he is. That's as hot as you can possibly be right now. Now, whether that lasts or not, I can't tell you. But I think the time to cash in on it is as quickly as he can.
This is a great note. Each of the 5 largest pay-per-views are boxing. Now, I'd like to see it, the fifth place number. McGregor-Diaz, the second fight, ranked 6th with 1.6 million buys. So what are the top 5? What were the buys in those? What's the disparity in number of those?
And I'm assuming this does not include the one that we just had 2 days ago. It does include that or not? It does not.
No.
So it's about move everything one down.
Exactly. Yeah.
move everything one place down on that list.
But I do wonder. So what was 5th place before Saturday? What was 5th before you got to 1.6 million, 1.65 million buys with MMA? How different is it? I don't know.
I think that, and again, I don't know that you could just count this in the number of buys. But if there are other metrics by which this stuff is measured, social media interest, amount of promotion, amount of mainstream discussion.
This is by buys, man. This is by what's going in your pocket.
But that's only for a very small number of people, right? So then as far as for the rest of the sport, the impact that it has on the rest of the sport, I think McGregor's next fight will be bigger than the Alvarez Triple G fight.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree.
Overall,
I don't know if I agree.
Impact.
I don't know if I agree. Quite honestly, these two boxers. I don't know who the next guy.
Can he fight Diaz again?
Because now remember, Diaz, they're different weight classes. Okay,
they fought
they
twice
were doing
before.
Right,
I have to believe we can do it again.
The rematch was coming. I don't know. I mean that's the one thing about it is MMA was more popular than boxing, and you didn't really know all the names, like the casual fan. The MMA people knew the names, but like I wasn't that versed in the names, but I was so into MMA. Well, now you really have a name. You really have that name in Conor McGregor to follow. It will be interesting, his next fight, and because you're going to want to follow this up with a big one. And to try and keep riding.
He has no reason now to do a small one.
No.
There's nothing left in this for him except.
And I don't know who. I don't know. We have Brett Okamoto coming on a little later. We can ask him what's that fight. I'm sure he'll be able to tell us what's that fight that will continue this.
Home isn't just a place; it's a feeling that you're safe to enjoy the things that matter most. ADT lets you take that feeling with you, whether you're at home, your business, or online. We help keep you safe with security systems, home automation, alarms, and surveillance, so you can feel at home wherever you are. Go to ADT.com to get that feeling for less than $1 a day. ADT. Home. Safe home.
Okay, Kevin, for the grand prize of $1 million. What color is the White House?
I know this.
5 seconds.
Oh, switching to Geico could save you a bunch of money on car insurance?
Okay. Judges? That's true, Kevin. They'll allow it. Congratulations. You're a winner.
Woo!
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
May have found ourselves a casual fan. Let's see. Adrian Wojnarowski has made his way into our studio, and he is the premier basketball analyst in the world, and we're delighted to have him here. We got to get into the details of the Kyrie Irving disaster now with Isaiah Thomas and everything else. But here's the first question I have for you, because you strike me as one of these guys. I know Shefty well enough to know that it feels like his entire life is just spent like in hermetically sealed with his phone up to his ear getting information. Did you watch the fight Saturday night?
I did watch it.
You did? Okay, so you were interested enough to do that. Good. So my question to you then is this.
Well, my family was interested enough to do it. I was going to watch Sleepers. It was on the movie.
Yeah.
I was done, but we ended up ordering the fight.
So. You got outvoted.
Absolutely.
Listen, we all know that.
Yeah. You know how that ends.
Okay, so maybe that doesn't beget my next question as well as I wanted, but you were going to be our first person in the focus group. We're trying to figure out which will have more interest going forward. There's a huge boxing match coming up in just 3 weeks' time, right? Alvarez and Triple G, which people who know the sport know is the biggest fight that could be made in the world right now. And Conor McGregor is most likely going to take his talents back to MMA, and he has, I think, more star power than the other two guys I just named combined. Which would you be more inclined to watch next? That fight coming up in 3 weeks in boxing, or whatever it is McGregor does next in MMA?
I would be inclined to watch neither, but I don't know the two boxers. I don't know the two boxers. I do know who McGregor is. I've been hearing about McGregor for a couple years. So I would say McGregor, but I'll probably try to watch Sleepers again on that night if it's on.
But so there's the point, though, right? He knows McGregor. That's the thing. Yeah, right there. That's your ticket in the door.
You can watch both. That's the thing.
Okay. So obviously,
at the end of the day, you can watch McGregor and Mayweather. You can watch Canelo and Triple G, and you can watch McGregor and whoever he's going to fight.
But they're only concerned about the people who will only watch one or the other. I mean, obviously, the people who are going to watch both, then they're all happy with.
Right.
My question is, which is the bigger event coming out of this?
Oh, McGregor's the bigger name, without question.
He's the bigger name.
Without question.
Does that translate to a bigger event? It's a good question.
I'll end up being on my phone anyway, whenever.
Yeah, or watching Sleepers. It seems.
It's well, it's going to be September 16th. So clearly there's. Well, I guess unless Carmelo gets traded, there shouldn't be anything going on.
Talking about this potential trade.
Okay, so what in the world is going on here? For folks who sort of missed your reporting over the weekend on this, where do we stand as of right now with the Kyrie Irving, Isaiah Thomas trade?
Cleveland looked at the physical of Isaiah Thomas on Friday. He came into town on Friday, took his physical, and there's a discrepancy between what Boston felt the readiness of Isaiah would be this season. They knew that he would not be ready to start the season. Cleveland has questions about when he will be ready, at what point. They fear it could be longer into the season, and this is a player with only a year left on his deal. His deal matches up with LeBron's. So they're going back to Boston. They're going to go back to Boston here, maybe today, and say we would like something additional to complete the trade. and then Boston's going to react to that request, and there's a standoff here coming.
Odds that this deal doesn't happen?
Both teams have a lot to lose to walk away from this. They both do. And Cleveland ultimately really values, we talked about this last week, Cleveland values that draft pick. They value that draft pick in a post-LeBron potential scenario there. They can't get a pick that high from anybody else. They really can't. And they have found in their first round going through this, they can't get a young player who might end up having greater value than that really high pick. So I still would be surprised if these teams let this thing die, but it's not done. It's not complete. And there's going to be some gamesmanship, some posturing that's going to continue to go on here before it gets done, or potentially, like you said, before it could completely unravel and the Celtic players would go back to Boston, Kyrie would have to go back to Cleveland, or Cleveland would start working right away on finding another deal.
Is there a discrepancy in what the Boston doctors are saying and the Cleveland doctors are saying? Is that where the trouble is?
Well, I think, people are going to evaluate medical information differently. Different organizations, doctors are going to look and evaluate. They felt in Boston, Isaiah played with some discomfort last year, had the best year of his career, and it's Boston feels like they were completely transparent with Cleveland about where he was physically, and they feel that they worked into the deal some value that accounted for the fact that Isaiah probably wouldn't be ready to start the season. Of course, Cleveland looks and says, no, we want more. We need more in this deal.
So how much do we know, if anything, about what it is Cleveland thinks they're going to get out of Isaiah Thomas this year? Are we talking about something where he's not ready by December, or are we talking about something where he may not be ready at all?
Unclear. I think there's a feeling he's going to. I haven't talked to anybody who doesn't think he's going to be completely miss the season. It's a question of when. And that's always hard to tell. My reporting is that he has not begun running in his rehabilitation. What Boston prescribed for him was rest and rehab, and that's what he's done this summer. But as of last week, he had not started running, and we are, a month, 5 weeks from training camp. I mean, you do the math on it. It's going to take time, and he's a player certainly built on his quickness, his explosion. But I know that around Isaiah and Boston, they felt his long-term, he's going to be a free agent next summer, and this is really unfair to him in a lot of ways because it's certainly impacting his value on the market. But I really think these concerns are short-term concerns in Cleveland because he's only got a year left on his deal, and they do want to, the best they can, have as much as they can around LeBron here to try to find some way to get him to stay.
So in any kind of standoff, whether it's here, it's team, and whether it's player, team, money-wise, we always look for who swings the bigger leverage hammer. Who has the bigger leverage hammer right here, the Cavaliers or the Celtics?
It's interesting. Boston, if Isaiah goes back and Boston wants, they do not have another opportunity to get a player of Kyrie's stature in a deal or free agency. But Boston still has those draft picks, and they have some good young players. And they could still package some of them, any of them, to do a deal for another point guard at some point if they decide not to go forward with Isaiah. Cleveland, they didn't get the offers that they really wanted with other teams in the Kyrie talks. Now imagine a scenario where Boston's out of the conversation. They don't have Boston to leverage in trade talks anywhere else. Why would anybody out there offer more than they did before when they know that Boston isn't involved in this? That's why I think they both have a lot to lose, and you still believe that they will find a way here to get this thing done.
Mike and Woj, from the outside looking in, it feels to me like Cleveland has much more to lose than Boston does, at least in the short term. They would have to manage the egos of, if worst came to worst and the thing blew up, which, again, Woj is not telling you who he thinks is going to happen. But if that did, they'd have to manage the egos of Isaiah Thomas and Jay Crowder and all that. But that's easier to do than whatever seems to be going on with Kyrie and everything else. And to be clear, what Cleveland is asking for is minor additional compensation. I assume we're not talking about another first-round pick here.
It's a negotiation, so they're going to ask for a lot.
Yeah.
And then Boston's going to say, no way. and then there'll be a negotiation. If at all Boston's willing to negotiate, Danny Ainge could say, guys, we're not doing anything. But, they have until Thursday to get this done before the physicals have to be either accepted or rejected. It's a negotiation, and that's where it plays into, like we said, who has leverage here, who's willing to live with the consequences of walking away from this thing.
All right, not to put you on the spot, but these are your choices.
You're going to put me on the spot.
I am. Nothing happens. It's money. It's a player. It's a draft pick.
It won't be money. That's not good. It won't be money.
I just threw that in there.
I would say I think it ends up being either nothing or some sort of a draft pick. I don't believe Cleveland's going to extract Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum. That's not going to happen in this. I would be shocked if that happened. But Boston does have a lot of picks. Could it be one of the late first-round picks? Could it be 2 second-round picks, 1 second? That's more likely, far more likely than a player of significant, really good young Boston player. I don't see Boston doing that.
The best of Mike and Mike.
Mike and Mike, reminding you, if you want to get in touch with us, tweet us at Mike and Mike through the 1-800-Flowers.com Twitter feed. Nothing makes a summer birthday or anniversary more magical than 1-800-Flowers.com. And right now, when you order a dozen multicolored roses for only $29.99, you're going to get another dozen free. Just go to 1-800-Flowers.com/ESPN.
So here's a number. Brock Lesnar, I'm being told, made $12 million last year in WWE. This in response to Kevin's tweet to us that McGregor will wind up in WWE and get paid Lesnar money to do so. That was for one fight. Lesnar got paid $12 million for one
for a whole
fight.
year?
Well,
then it's not worth it.
That's my point.
He'll make more. He'll make more in
what did
MMA.
Cena make? $8 million. Is that for a year? Or is that's for a year?
Yeah,
so McGregor's going to make that for 10 minutes.
In the Diaz fight, which is 6 all-time pay-per-view, I think with pay-per-view and purse, I think he made 11 to 15 mil in that area there. So, and he'll make more than that. Whatever the next fight is for him, and they really obviously want to capitalize on that right now and have another big fight, whether it's GSP or who it's going to be that McGregor would fight. I absolutely believe they need to capitalize on that right now. So, but who is it going to be? Diaz? I mean, someone around his weight, or is it going to be up like GSP is what, 170? Did we say in that area there, 170? So, I don't know, but this is the time. This is the time to capitalize on it.
I agree,
sure.
and he's in the right sport to do it. And I'll give Dana White credit for a number of things, including this. He makes the fights you want. And that's one of the reasons that MMA has come so far so fast, is that boxing takes forever. Pacquiao and Mayweather didn't fight each other until they were both basically done. That fight was a shell of what it should have been, because those guys should have fought each other when they were both at least close to their respective primes. What MMA does so well is they get you the fights you want.
Yeah.
They get them together and they make them happen. They make them fast. So that's what they'll do. They will go. Dana White is probably with Conor McGregor right now.
Yeah, and you know what I said? GSP against George St. Pierre. He's got to fight Conor. He's going to fight that 185. I thought he was 170. So is he bigger than that? I mean, that's the thing. Who is he going to fight? I mean, McGregor would just get destroyed by these guys. Now, he used to fight at 170, so I don't know where that, but boy, you know what Dana White can mix and match stuff to make it work, to make it a big fight. So it's just a matter, I guess, what the payday is going to be and who you can match up to make it that biggest fight.
And Southpaw Adam tweets at us, McGregor will stay in boxing. Mayweather will become his promoter and trainer a la Rocky 3. So we'll see where that winds up going. Brett Okamoto will join us in a couple of minutes. Okay, we're going to teach Golic a new word. It's funny, we've been together so long that the first thing I see when I read this tweet yesterday is Golic is going to ask me what this word means. And so let me read you the succession of tweets. Matt Snyder for CBS, who writes for CBS Sports covering baseball, wrote a story saying, this is the headline of it. I didn't read the whole story, but the headline tells you everything you need to know. The story says, stop saying the real home run record belongs to anyone except Barry Bonds. And so I didn't read the whole story, but you can tell from the headline the point that he's making, that as so many do, including, I think, candidly, both of us, that the guy is the home run record. They're not taking it away from him. And so we can stop with the is Giancarlo Stanton chasing the true home run record when he chases after Roger Maris. Keith Olbermann quote tweeted that and wrote, nope, pure sophistry. College sports vacate championships for cheating all the time. A statistic is more easily invalidated. These are. So before anything else, before I started considering whether I agree with Keith or not, and I think he's making an interesting point, and I want to talk about it, the first thought I had was, if I read that to you, Golic is going to stop me on the word sophistry.
Oh, I thought you meant on the word pure. I know what sophistry means.
They put it up on the screen, I noticed. Would you have known the word sophistry otherwise? Because I will admit, that is a word that I've heard, and I'm aware basically of what it means, but I don't know that I've ever seen it used.
Here's how much I would not have known. Not only would I not have known what it means, but how bad it gets is when the definition uses a word I don't know. The definition of
the word fallacious.
The definition of sophistry is the use of fallacious arguments. I would have had to stop and think about that.
And now that you know what it means.
Say it carefully, yeah.
So sophistry, what it basically means is saying something
that's wrong.
I've always thought, here's what I thought it meant. I thought it meant saying something that you know to be untrue and trying to make it sound true. That's what I thought the word meant. Now that I see the definition of it, yeah, with the intention of deceiving. Okay, so that is right. I always thought sophistry was I'm saying something to you and trying to make you believe it, even though I know it's not true. Whatever. The point is,
why couldn't you say that's just wrong?
Because that's Keith.
Why do you have to? Why all these
Keith
big
is
words?
going to use the word sophistry.
Why are all you journalists out there using big words?
That's not even. That's
whatever
like,
it is.
That's going to use. That's using the word sophistry where phony might have sufficed.
Yeah.
But one way or the other. He's making the point. College sports vacate championships for cheating.
Listen,
all the time.
Oh, and look, what do they do with Olympic medals? They take them away from you.
Right.
And all of a sudden, this 8th place person got the gold medal because the 7 in front of him doped.
And look, I mean, your son, Mike Golic Jr., who's in here with us all the time, his team made it to a college football national championship
undefeated.
Game. And when he takes his grandchildren back to Notre Dame, or when he drops his kids off there for their first day of their freshman year, there is nowhere that he can take them on that campus to show them, look, this plaque represents the team I was on that had an unbeaten season. Why? Because there was an academic issue involving that team. It wasn't even quote unquote cheating.
Right.
And so they invalidated the whole thing. It's like it never happened.
Wins were vacated.
So they can do that.
Yes.
They can do that. So, and now they're putting up the definition of the word
definition
vacate.
of the word vacate, okay?
To a place that one previously occupied. So Keith is basically saying, college sports do this all the time. Why couldn't you? Just take it out.
Where's your line
out of the
then?
Book, pretend it didn't happen.
Where's your line?
Give me a line.
What's your line of where are you taking records out? Is it just the top record? What if somebody who is in 4th place, you taking them out? And I'll say again, Keith, what about when guys use amphetamines? Those are illegal. Does that count anywhere? Where I would ask Keith, where's your line? Where's your line of saying this is vacated? Whether you're 1st on the list, 3rd on the list, 8th on the list, are you vacating all those? And where does your line stop of what you're using to vacate? That's what I would ask.
Yes, there probably will not be a vacating in this.
No.
Is that, would that tense of that word be a vacation? Probably not. Is it a vacation? Will there be a vacation of this record? And if so, where will it be spent? You know what I'm saying? The point is, you could vacate or you could just put an asterisk. You could put some sort of notation of it, I believe is what he's suggesting you could do if you wanted to do it.
Yes, you could do that.
I don't believe they will because I don't believe they want to.
I don't believe so either.
But he's suggesting they could. We opened the show this morning with these thoughts. A great American city and the place that Mike Golic began his football career is underwater, and our thoughts are certainly with all of our friends in Houston, where over the years we have spent together a lot of time. We've been there for any number of different sporting events, whether it was we played in the Shell Houston Open multiple years. We've been there for 2 Super Bowls I can think of, a baseball all-star game, a Final Four. It's a wonderful sports community, and it's certainly so much more than that. And to see what's happening there, the images on the television screens are just impossible to imagine. Places that you recognize that are just completely submerged. And perhaps most frightening of all, Mike, is that as I sit here reading it during the break, it sounds as though they are nowhere near being finished yet.
We've heard maybe even half to 25 to 30 inches and maybe getting upwards of 50 inches in some areas. I mean, listen, that was my home for the first 2.5 years of my NFL career, getting drafted by the Houston Oilers. I'm seeing the 610 loop underwater, and I was on that all the time. I mean, to see what's going on there is it's just horrible to watch people being trapped Unfortunately, there's been some loss of life, and you just hope that people are getting saved and from wherever they're stranded from, and we don't see that number go up at all. But what out of these tragedies, it's always amazing to watch the human spirit, and we know the greatness of our first responders, those that run into trouble as those others are trying to escape it and get away from it. Those first responders are in trying to save people. And they're doing what they do. We're so appreciative of that. But what's been amazing is that the regular person out there, is checking on their neighbor, is helping people, their friends, is helping people they don't know, whether it's wading through the water to see if they're trapped somewhere or using, an inflatable boat or a boat they have to go on a road. You're watching boats go around cars that are just have water over the top of them on roads. It's just unbelievable. But how everybody is trying to help others through all of this. And as you mentioned, it's still continuing. It's just it's heartbreaking to see. So thoughts and prayers there. J.J. Watt has started, and there's going to be many funds out there, but from a sports side of it, he started a YouCaring. Was it YouCaring.com? Is that YouCaring.com? He's up to $293,000. He put in the first $100,000. He wants to get to $500,000, and certainly there are going to be, I would imagine, plenty of ways that we can, who are not there physically, that can help them. I'm sure there'll be so many coming in from other states for rescue operations and help in the aftermath of all this, which is just going to be incredible as well. So our thoughts and prayers out there to everybody, and just the resolve of people helping one another is something great to see. You just hate to see it in such a tragic situation.
Yes, soon enough and as soon as possible, the rebuild, of course, and that's where a lot of those funds will be put to good use. But for the moment, you're trying to keep everybody as safe as you can, including the first responders. So I agree with you, Mike. I marvel at the heroism of these people who, as I always say, are running the wrong way. Natural human instinct tells you there's terrible danger in that direction. Run in the other direction, and there they go. So, what can we say except for we will do our best to entertain any of you who've gotten out and are safe somewhere and want to get your mind off your trouble. But obviously in Houston, you have far greater concerns than anything like this. And what else can you say? We certainly are thinking of everybody down there, right, and look forward to going back when that city is back and better than ever as soon as possible. Meanwhile, back to the games, as we mentioned, that people play, and the huge fight of this weekend that so many people watched and I think came away with a pretty satisfied feeling from. Really curious to hear the perspective of Brett Okamoto, who was on with us multiple times during the build-up to this fight. Does a terrific job covering MMA for us at ESPN, and he joins us now on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I think that the overwhelming feeling, I don't want to put words in your mouth. I have a sense of what the overwhelming response I had was to McGregor's performance. What have you been hearing from the MMA fans about the performance of Conor McGregor on Saturday night?
Well, MMA fans, for sure, they felt that he did a terrific job. But, even more so, just the general public and the boxing fans and everyone else who weren't really, the MMA fans are probably going to be on Conor's side one way or the other. But the general public seeing him go out and box Floyd Mayweather, the most impressive thing to me is that I think all of us can agree he did well early on in the fight, right? And I think most of us can probably agree that Floyd was okay with him doing well early on in the fight. He seemed like that was almost part of his game plan, not to throw a lot of punches, let Conor wear himself out. But the way in which he had success, it wasn't sloppy. It wasn't just a big mixed martial arts brute in there with no boxing skills, just throwing everything he could at Floyd and just getting rounds handed to him. He showed some skill in there against the most skillful fighter of his generation. So that's what was impressive of it to me.
So when you were watching that, early on when he hits that uppercut, where everybody was like, oh, my God, he just landed a solid uppercut on Floyd Mayweather. After the first two rounds, did your thought process start to change and think, wow, I wonder if he could be in this thing and possibly pull it off?
I think it's impossible not to, just a little bit, sitting in that arena and seeing how well the first two rounds went for him. I mean, I still thought that a boxing match is just so long, man. I mean, like the number 12 doesn't seem like a big number, but 12 rounds, it's a long, long, long time to be boxing in there, especially against a guy who knows how to work the pace as well as Floyd Mayweather. So, I mean, the uppercut was phenomenal. And it happened very early on in the fight. And then there were also some jabs in the third round where he was jabbing Floyd Mayweather's head back. That was not what we were thinking. We didn't think Conor McGregor was going to come out and be successful with a jab. I know it didn't last very long that he had success with the jab, but to see it at all was very surreal. So yeah, after the first couple of rounds, then you started to wonder, well, how old is Floyd, and is the 2 years off? Is that affecting him a little bit? But I still thought that, just gauging by Floyd's demeanor and that he did not look panicked and that he hadn't really thrown anything, you just kind of thought in the back of your head, like, okay, let's just wait and see what happens when Floyd starts to get going a little bit.
Mike and Mike, Brett Okamoto was with us after the fight. Dana White said he doesn't want to see McGregor back in a boxing ring. He wants to see McGregor back in MMA. Is it your expectation that the next time we see Conor McGregor, it'll be in the octagon?
Yeah, 100%. Not only because, I honestly think that's what Conor would want. I think that's what he prefers. He always preferred mixed martial arts. He was going over to boxing because it was a challenge, because he could make a whole lot of money and get the opportunity to fight Floyd Mayweather. But I think he likes to throw kicks and elbows and knees, and he likes, the wrestling element of it, even though he's not really known for it. So I think that that's his preference. I think that there's a lot of options over there for him. I mean, he's a champion. He needs to defend his belt. There's a lot of guys who deserve a fight against him over in the mixed martial arts. So, yeah, his next fight will be in mixed martial arts. Whether or not he'll ever box again, I mean, that's another question.
He would, in my opinion, be foolish to box again. If he got in the ring with someone who had knockout power, then it's going to be over with a lot quicker, I would think. I agree with you. I think MMA is the place for him. So let's talk about that. You want to ride the wave, and right now he has helped that MMA wave stay very high. So where is it? Is it Diaz for a third time? People were tweeting in about St. Pierre, but I mean, it seems too big for that. How about this kid? It's Khabib. I can't pronounce his last name. I know he's a weight class of McGregor. He's 24-0. I know this kid, at 6 years old, wrestled a bear and is supposed to be some kind of nutcase. So what's the next match out there that can help continue ride that wave?
Well, let me help you out with Khabib's last name first. It's actually, you just read it, Nurmagomedov. It's just exactly how it works. So there you go. Yeah, I think it's going to be Nate Diaz. Like you just mentioned, there's a whole lot of options. There's actually some other options that you didn't even mention yet that I would throw in there as well. But what we know about Conor is that he's going to be looking for the biggest fight possible. And so I think that is a trilogy fight with Nate Diaz, which I'm fine with. Last year when those two finished up fighting, that 5-round fight in August, I was like, you know what? Yeah, we'll see a trilogy fight down the road, but let's not see it right away. I mean, there's no need to see it right away. That fight will always exist and always be exciting. And now we're only 1 year away, and Conor's really only fought twice since then. But it feels fresh again. It does feel fresh, and I would be excited to see that fight. I would be excited to see Khabib, but he hasn't fought at all this year. There's another guy by the name of Tony Ferguson who I believe is deserving of it. You know what? Don't throw out the name George St. Pierre, though. I'm telling you, those two guys are actually somewhat closer to size than you may think, just because in mixed martial arts, size is it can change. These guys can cut so much weight that the UFC could put together a fight between Conor McGregor and George St. Pierre. I would not throw that out.
And, Brett, doesn't it have to be that, though? I mean, you mentioned a couple other names. And listen, MMA people are going to know some of the names you mentioned. I won't as much. And isn't that what the MMA is trying to do? They're trying to go for Greeny and I. So doesn't it have to be a name that he fights that we know? Diaz we know because he fought him twice. GSP is a name, I know because I've seen him fight and heard about him. Doesn't it have to be McGregor and a name guy to keep riding this wave?
Yeah, well, that's a really big question about how the sport is structured right now, because boxing has always gotten away with creating the big fight, and no one really cares because there's so many belts out there. There's so many belts that they almost don't mean much. You can be a champion, or you can find somebody you can find a sanctioning body that will put up a belt for something. In the UFC, the belts mean something drastically different. I mean, these guys are in their contracts. It states if you're a champion, you're getting paid this much. If you're not a champion, you're getting paid far, far, far less. So that's what makes the structure of it a little different, is that there has to be some integrity of that belt, because it's so important. Now, if the UFC starts to go in the opposite direction and says, no, we just need to make the big money fights, then they need to change sort of almost their business model and how they're contracting these guys, because it's just not fair to them that you might have another guy who's completely deserving but just hasn't gotten a fan base around him. Well, now it's like, well, he deserves a fight to fight for a championship and to make the money, but he's not getting it because he's not the big name. I think that's something that the sport is going to have to address if it's now looking for only the biggest fights possible all the time.
Mike and Mike, presented by Progressive Insurance. Brett Okamoto is with us. Conor McGregor has achieved a level of stardom right now in our society that perhaps only Ronda Rousey ever had before in MMA. And she tried, I think, to parlay that. She was talking about her doing movies, and she was all over the place. And then perhaps coincidentally, perhaps not, she started losing fights. Do you think Conor McGregor has a variety of other interests that he will pursue? And if so, do you think that will impact his ability to be a champion in UFC?
I think he's dabbling in some other areas intelligently to bring in some more money. I do think that. I don't think that he's looking around for opportunities to act necessarily as much as Rousey did. I think that he knows those are out there and that they'll be out there for him, but his focus is more on fighting. And I just don't think he's. Rousey's problem, I don't think, was ever necessarily that she was distracted. I think that she was just, you're almost talking about apples and oranges because the sport of female mixed martial arts is not quite as evolved as the sport of the men's side. So you had her with her one skill set of the judo, where she was able to just throw those women down and armbar them, and they had no idea how to stop it. They had zero idea how to stop it. And once they figured out, okay, this is how you sort of stop that, well, then she didn't really have a whole lot of other tools to fall back on. McGregor is more suited to accept a loss, make changes, and still be real competitive. Whereas, with Rousey, when she lost that, she just wasn't the same fighter. She was not as dominant, obviously. So I don't think we have to worry necessarily about the distractions with Conor. I think we just have to worry about he is in a really tough sport, and these guys that are coming for him are talented, and it's not just a given that he's gonna come back to mixed martial arts and win his next 2-3 fights. That is not a guarantee whatsoever.
So, Brett, this is a tough one to answer. As far as pay-per-view, the Diaz-McGregor was 6 all-time with 5 boxing matches ahead of it. It'll soon drop one once the numbers for this bout come out as well. So the money he got for that, I believe with the purse and the pay-per-view, was in the area of $13-15 million. I think you can correct me on that as far as McGregor is concerned. How much more do you think that is up, if it is a Diaz 3 and McGregor 3, or if it is a GSP fight? How much has McGregor increased his value to what he could make in the next big pay-per-view in MMA?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's a question that I'm interested in and I want to know the answer to. And I'll be honest, I can speculate for you. I think that number goes up, into the 20 millions per fight potentially for Conor. But it is hard to speculate because this sport in mixed martial arts, Conor's already making paychecks that weren't around, a few years ago. So that's why, Mike, you and I were talking about before the fight, is that going to be the big story in 2018? Is that Conor is going to come back to the UFC, but for how much, and how do those conversations go? But again, I saw Ari Emanuel, the owner of the UFC now, from WME, IMG, and he's very happy with Conor, and I did not sense any sort of, concern over, what's looming ahead. I think that they've had some of those conversations. I think they're in a really good place. I know that Conor wants to fight. That's really one of the kickers in all of this, is that sure, he has leverage and he can sit out and he can say, I'm only fighting for this amount. But at the end of the day, he's under contract with the UFC. So if he wants to fight, it will have to be with the UFC. And this guy wants to fight. I mean, he is a fighter. And you saw that in the Floyd fight and in my interview with him afterwards. I mean, this guy's not stopping fighting anytime soon. He wants to fight. So, yeah, it is going to be interesting, though, to find out what those figures are on this next UFC fight.
And so a final thought, the expectation, again, you're telling us what we expected, which is the expectation is that he will go back and he will fight in UFC. How soon? Is there any, maybe I'm just asking you to guess here, but how quickly do you think we should expect to hear word that a fight has been made, and how quickly do you think we should expect to see him back in action?
There was some hope that he would be December 30th. The UFC is back in Las Vegas in that exact same building, T-Mobile, December 30th, with a pay-per-view event, and that was the hope even before this fight, is that Conor could be on that card. So I think really what it comes down to, if it's going to be Nate or if it's going to be someone else, those guys are ready. I mean, they want to fight Conor. I mean, they'll do whatever they need to make a date when Conor is ready. So I think what it comes down to is what does McGregor want? He just got done with a very intense, hyper-focused training camp for Floyd, and And in the immediate aftermath, he was animated, and I think he wanted to fight again. But now he's going to go off. He's going to enjoy himself a little bit. Does he want to jump back into a training camp for a 5-round fight to defend his title? How soon does he want to do that? It's not easy to just jump right back into a camp. But if he's ready to do it and wants to do it on December 30th, then that will be the plan.
All right, we'll see. Brett, we've really enjoyed this, and you've helped us learn a lot about this along the way, so we appreciate that very much. Thanks, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thanks, Brett.
It's been my pleasure, guys. Thanks.
That's Brett Okamoto again. Terrific job covering all the MMA for us. So December 30th. Let's just put that date down as though it's going to happen. And again, we don't know because money can make you do a lot of things.
Yeah, it can.
It's all well and good to be hungry and all that kind of stuff. And I believe that he wants to continue fighting. He's a fighter, and he seems to like it.
But he wants to maximize it as well.
His first description, and I can't do his accent, but his first description, well, it was a bit of fun. Was the way he described, getting belted around the ring by Floyd Mayweather for 10 rounds. But my question, so what we don't know is he'll fight again. Will he have the same hunger? Will he work just as hard? Will he want it just as badly now that he's got tens of millions of dollars in the bank? Let's put that aside. Canelo and Triple G, September 16th.
Right.
That's 3 weeks away. Mm-hmm. Maybe riding a little bit of the wave of how well this experience went just 3 weeks before. McGregor, let's just put him against Diaz. Third fight between the two of them, December 30th. Which is the bigger event and which gets more buys? Those don't have to be the same in my mind.
I probably lean toward McGregor, the wave he's riding right now. I mean, he's on top of the world right now. He fought a fight that nobody thought he could win, and he did better than some expected. He's a crazy dude. In some ways, somewhat likable, crazy, because there are, especially in this one, there are the other side, the people that despise Mayweather for his actions outside the ring and the domestic violence issues that he has had. So there's that side of it, but they also know that McGregor's a crazy dude. And listen, if you're talking in a ring boxing or in an octagon doing MMA, you want crazy. That's what you want. I mean, you love to watch that saying, boy, I'm glad it ain't me and I ain't got to get in the ring. But, man, we like crazy. And the crazier, the better. So that's where he is right now. He's riding the wave right now. So you wonder, the one thing that's going to happen is if something going to get set up, he is going to have some big demands, right? He is going to say, how Mayweather was saying, I'm the A side and McGregor's the B side? Well, McGregor's been the A side. With MMA for a bit now, but he is really going to pull the A-side card, right? And say, I should get the lion's share of everything. I made $15 million, I want $30 million. I don't know what he's going to ask for, but it's about money as well. And he just got the biggest payday of his life, so he is going to try and maximize it, as he should, as much as he possibly can.
I'm just trying to do it in my head, but as far as household names, McGregor is now a household name.
Yes, he is.
He's a name basically everyone in America knows. Boxing traditionally has done a very good job of creating those. I mean, I just started writing names down from our earlier life.
Oh.
Ray Leonard, Marvin Hagler, Thomas Hearns, Roberto Duran. If you want to go all the way back to the 70s, we don't even have to, but you can go back all through Ali and all the great heavyweights of that era with Holmes and Foreman and even guys like Ernie Shavers and others who became very well known. And then on through Tyson and Holyfield and Lennox Lewis. They don't have that now. Triple G and Canelo Alvarez are not that. They people who know boxing know they're the best. This is the best fight that you could possibly make in the world right now, but they're not household names.
The best of Mike and Mike.
All right, football is around the corner. We will get to a bunch of that with Al Michaels. We also had the huge fight this weekend. We'll ask Al about that as well. We are presented by Progressive Insurance. He is on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line, and congratulations as NBC's Sunday Night Football was honored by the Pro Football Hall of Fame for a record 6 straight seasons as primetime TV's #1 show. So while football may be having a little trouble, there's still more people watching that than anything else. Here's Al Michaels back with us on Mike and Mike. Good morning, Al.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Good, Al.
We're doing great, and we certainly want to get into a lot of football, as obviously you and the crew will be getting set for another season. We just had Chris Collinsworth on last week and had some really good fun with him. But you, of course, are known for covering all sports and have been doing so for a long time. So I'm just curious to get your perspective on the show that we saw on Saturday night and what, if anything, you took away from it with what McGregor was able to do against Mayweather. What did you make of this event, this spectacle in sports, and what, if anything, do you think we take away from it?
I actually watched it with Chris Collinsworth on Saturday night after we went to dinner in Minneapolis. We're here for the game that we did last night. And, look, it turned out to be a heck of a lot better than I thought it would. I thought it might be over very, very quickly. I noticed that you guys have Al Bernstein on at the bottom of the hour.
Yes.
Al and I have met once. We spent one night together. We did Hagler-Hearns in 1985.
Oh, my goodness.
So you've got to ask him about that. I mean, I was with Bob Arum recently, and even Bob, who has seen everything, ranks that as his greatest fight ever. And I think Al would agree with that as well on April the 15th, 1985. So, I mean, that was over the moon, off the charts. But the other night, it was fun. I mean, to watch it, and at first we all thought, when I say we, Chris and a couple of guys we were watching it with, we're going, it almost looked as if McGregor was 2 weight classes bigger than Mayweather. And it looked like Floyd was a little tired and a little old at that particular point. But as he said in the interview after the fight, that was his strategy, and it worked out perfectly. But it was fun to watch.
Did you think, you mentioned boxing in 85, that was my first year in the league, and I mean boxing, where that was at that point, and it seems where it is now to the casual fan are two different places. Do you think this helps either boxing or MMA or both with how popular this pay-per-view was?
Might help MMA a little bit more than boxing. It might help them. It might help MMA more than boxing guys. But I think when you go back to the 80s and why boxing was so popular. I mean, you were coming off Muhammad Ali in the 70s and the great heavyweight fights, and what made it so interesting in the mid 80s, especially with Hagler-Hearns, was you had 4 guys that kept going back and forth in the welterweight and middleweight classes. You had Duran, you had Leonard, you had Hagler, you had Hearns. So you had any combination of fantastic fights. And now you just don't have it. Most people don't know who any of these guys are anymore. So, boxing has slid. It's not nearly as popular as it used to be. Will it get back to what it was? I don't think so.
The only way to do it is to keep making the fights that everybody wants to see and to see these fighters together in their prime, which the UFC has done a very good job of. All right, Mike and Mike, Al Michaels is with us, NBC. Their opening game, of course, is coming up Thursday, September 7th. They got Chiefs at Patriots. And so let's start with that one. Floyd Mayweather is 40 years old. We saw him on Saturday night. A week from Thursday, we'll see Tom Brady with you, and he's 40 years old. And Mike and I have gone back and forth all summer long on what exactly to expect from Brady going forward. You've been calling football games, Al, a really long time. He may be the greatest quarterback of all time, but he's going to try and do something that has never been done before. No one has ever started a Super Bowl at the age of 40. No one has gone to 41, 42, 43, playing that position or any at a high level. What is your expectation for how long Brady can keep this going?
Well, he looked pretty good at 39.
Yeah,
let's put it that way.
Did.
And don't at 37, they were ready to get even so the local media in Boston, they were ready for Garoppolo. You guys remember the Monday night game in Kansas City, the one where at the end of the game, after they'd been slaughtered by the Chiefs, Belichick says, "We're on to Cincinnati. We're on to Cincinnati." And we did the Cincinnati game that following Sunday, and all of a sudden, everything was sweetness and light again. And of course, at the end of that season, they wound up winning the Super Bowl by defeating Seattle. Look, will there be a diminishment in Tom's play? At a certain point, there will have to be. But he's so smart. He figures out how to. He's almost like a pitcher in baseball who lasts a lot longer than most pitchers do. They figure out how to do it. They figure, even if there's a few miles an hour off the fastball, they know how to work the plate. They know how to change speeds. And Tom, to me, is very much like that. So I expect Tom to have a really good year. Will he fall off a cliff? I doubt it. Will there be a diminishment at some point? There has to be. I mean, at the age of 40, at a certain point, you just can't keep doing it. Then again, who knows? George Blanda wasn't bad either in his 40s. He wasn't, playing as much as Brady was, obviously. But, you guys might remember in the 70s there were these series of Oakland Raider games that were just phenomenal, where Blanda would come in and win the game, and everybody talked about it the next day. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Tom's going to last to 46 or 47, but he's got plenty left as far as I'm concerned.
one guy he won't be able to throw the ball to this year is Julian Edelman, who goes out with a knee injury. And we've seen a number of injuries, especially this past weekend. And every year we say, wow, is it more than the previous year? And it probably isn't. We see guys get hurt in the preseason every year. But, Al, you've been around this game a long time, from 6 preseason games to 4 preseason games to the last CBA. The offseason doesn't start till April. They can only have 14 padded practices during the regular season now. Do you see the way it's going that 4 preseason games gets diminished down to 2 now that teams start to practice with one another during the week? Where do you see this going?
I hope so, Mike. I mean, it's ridiculous already. Look, I'm old enough to remember when it was a 12-game season and they played 6 preseason games. They played 6. And then they played 12 in the regular season, so at least they got it down to 4. I mean, even the commissioner, Roger Goodell, who gets his way very, very often, 10 years ago, Roger said 4 is too many. So how did we get to this point where we still have 4 preseason games? It's too many. I mean, last night we had a game that went right down to the end. Minnesota won it on a 2-point conversion with 3 zeros on the clock. I mean, it's exciting and all of the rest. There couldn't have been 15,000 people in U.S. Bank Stadium at the end of the game. And in fact, there were so many empty seats. Look at the Chargers. The Chargers only have 30,000 seats or a little bit less to sell at Home Depot. They had, 21,000 at their first preseason game. So, I mean, to me, enough's enough already, and I wish they would get it down to 2 at most.
Chris Collinsworth, your partner, again, had very similar thoughts with us when he was here last week. Mike and the great Al Michaels from NBC. Again, they open with Chiefs, Patriots, and then you get Giants and Cowboys, which is almost like a traditional opener for the two. They play each other every year, week 1, and that'll be on the Sunday night opener. And it'll be a game that, unless something changes, will be played without Zeke Elliott. A lot of this conversation now about the CBA. Mike, you weren't here on Friday, but we had DeMaurice Smith on, and all of this sort of back and forth and the animosity, Al, that exists currently between the players and the Players Association and the league front office and, I guess, representing the owners. How much impact do you think that is having on fans' perception of the sport? The fact that those two sides seem to dislike and distrust each other as much as they do, how bad do you think that is in the big picture for the sport?
I really don't think it matters all that much. I mean, there's so much underside in sports these days. And in a way, I hate to say it, but it's almost as if the more controversial things are, the more interest that fans have in it. And my feeling is that if you love football, if you love sports, especially the NFL, despite all of the underside, the seaminess, the back and forth, the injuries, the concussion situation, all of this, there are people who are going to sit down and go, you know what, I just want to watch a football game. There are enough of them. Will there be some diminishment in terms of interest? Maybe. But I really think it's marginal. And, guys, I look at when people say to me, well, the NFL and the ratings were down last year, and it's not what it used to be, blah, 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 and we don't like Kaepernick taking a knee, and we're not going to watch. So were the ratings down last year? A little bit. But at the end of the day, when I keep looking at the ratings, 1 through 120 of the shows on the broadcast networks, it was number 1 again. So I'm going, wait a second. And then a lot of people would say, well, we don't watch Thursday Night Football. We hate it. The games are bad, blah, 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 blah. So then I look at the ratings, and the 5 games we did on NBC last year were number 2, and when CBS had the games, they're number 4. So when somebody tells me, hey, you have to see a show that America's watching, it's fantastic, the whole country's watching it, and I look at the ratings, and that show is like number 32, and I'm going, hold on a second. But football is 1, 2, and 4, so explain that math to me, would you?
Yeah, that does seem to be some funny math right there. Al, let's lean on your
right.
years, obviously, covering the league. You've seen quarterbacks come into this league prepared as young players because of the style they play, to more of a pro style in college, and we see that's changed. We just see that Deshaun Kaiser, the rookie from Notre Dame, will start for Cleveland, and we saw other rookies, Trubisky and Deshaun Watson, Pat Mahomes as well, stepping into the league. From your vantage point, how different is it for young quarterbacks from decades ago to now coming in the league?
Well, I think they come in so much better prepared, obviously, and they're smarter and they're sharper because they've been around it. I think, and also, guys, I think they're better coached. I mean, coaching has evolved through the years because coaches have learned so much through the years. These kids grow up, and if these elite quarterback kids, were star athletes for the most part in high school. We're very well coached and we're very well conditioned in football as well. So, every time, and you guys have been through all these cycles where what happens when, Brady retires and Breeze retires and all that, where's the next group coming from? Well, the next group always seems to be coming along. And I'm sure it is again at this particular point. But, to me, I just look at the quality of play, period, in the NFL, and you can't tell me that game is not played at a higher level than it's ever been played at. Guys are better conditioned, better coached, better trained, and the whole thing. And, to me, we look at black and white film from the 60s and the 70s. It's not the same game. The sport is played at a fantastic level. Look, it's a violent sport. We know that guys are bigger, stronger, faster, and all the rest. But, I look at the quarterbacks, and they come in, and they're so far better prepared than they used to be, and especially in the situation you've got a team like Cleveland. What do you have to lose? This kid may be your quarterback of the future. Get him in there, and they did.
Al Michaels, again, NBC's got Chiefs, Patriots to start, and then Giants, Cowboys. All right, give us one as we let you go here. We're going to have Al Bernstein, as you said, and he called Hagler Hearns. What is your one overriding memory from that night? What do you, when you close your eyes and you think about that night in your life, what's the one thing you remember more than anything else?
It was so stunning, Mike, because most fights start with the feeling out process, and there's parrying, and they're like warming up. And all I remember about that fight is when the bell rang, the two guys came to the middle of the ring and just started to try to kill each other. Period. There was no defense. There was none. I was out of breath after the first round. It was almost surreal. It was almost as if I was saying to myself, did that really take place? And I watched the tape of it from time to time. It was astonishing. And what I'll also remember about that, too, is sitting there, with Al Bernstein at ringside. And at one point, Hearns hit Hagler so hard that Hagler's face, and he was right above me, compressed. It became concave. And the flash thought in my head was that he killed him. And it was almost like a cartoon. Hagler's face then came back to normal shape, and then Hagler jumped on Hearns. And I'm going, how is this possible? It was astonishing. And, I've seen some, unbelievable things in covering sports through the years, and that's right up near the top, believe me.
Al Michaels, it's always a pleasure to catch up. Thank you so much. Have a great season. We'll check in sometime soon.
Thanks, Al.
You bet. Thank you.
That's the great Al Michaels with us. Mike and Mike presented by Progressive Insurance. He was on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. I remember that fight. Do you remember that fight?
Absolutely, yes.
It is when people talk about great fights, people will talk about usually you talk about fights that went deep when you talk about great fights that went a long way, went the distance, Ali Frazier and things like that. The legendary ones, at least in my lifetime, there's never been more action compressed into what amounted to like 8 minutes of real time in any sporting event I've ever seen than that fight. Hagler Hearns was the most exciting thing I ever saw, and it ended in 3 rounds.
Yeah, there's no feeling each other out in the fight like that. As Al said, they just came out to try and kill one another. There was no defense. There wasn't, I'm going to take a couple of rounds to kind of see what's going on here. It's go for the throat right away.
If you haven't ever seen it, it's worth watching. It won't take much time.
No, it won't.
It ends in the 3rd round, but he's not exaggerating it at all. The two of them fly at each other and just start wailing away, and it is haymaker after haymaker. And Hearns, for those who remember, was this huge string bean of a man. He was incredibly skinny.
Yeah.
And Hagler was much more like stout.
Hagler scared me.
Hagler was he was tough. Hearns was tough too.
No, he was, but Hagler scared me.
But that era, you had Hagler, you had Hearns, you had Roberto Duran, you had Ray Leonard.
Right.
And the four of them, they created unbelievable fights.
They did.
It felt like every other
all
week.
the time. It did. It's exactly right.
And the heavyweight division, I don't want to mix up my eras. How much before that were Ken Norton, Ernie Shavers, the end of Ali, that era of heavyweights? Because this was before, what we're talking about now is before Tyson. Tyson came after these guys.
Right.
But
man, was boxing fun to watch.
It was. And why? The primary reason why. Because these two other guys, two people, Marvin Smith and Thomas, Rabinowitz.
Yeah.
I don't know where I came up with that was.
There you go.
Could have that same fight. And you and I wouldn't have watched it. We wouldn't have cared, and it wouldn't have made any difference. But when there's stars, that's what it's about. Yeah. It's about creating stars.
I agree.
Thomas Hearns and Marvin Hagler were stars. The same fight we just watched on Saturday night, which was okay. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't McGregor and Mayweather, you would have said, well, I don't even know what I just saw there. That was nothing exciting. So it's the combination. It's kind of like the slam dunk contest. You can watch the greatest dunk of all time.
But if it's a guy you don't know, if it's a LeBron, it's like, wow. If it's somebody else you don't know, it's like, okay.
You need that combination of things.
These dudes just were throwing haymakers.
But that brings me back to my previous point, which is I think wherever McGregor goes now is where the money goes.
Yeah.
I think there will be more because McGregor comes out of this fight, and I'm going to make a statement. You tell me if this is accurate. Currently in the world of combat sports, the biggest star is Conor McGregor.
In combat sport? Oh, yeah.
Is that accurate?
Yeah.
So that's it. That means so just follow that.
Yeah.
Follow the money and see where it goes. I think it follows the star more than anything else, more than the discipline.
Yeah.
I still believe there are more boxing fans in America than there are MMA fans.
I agree with that.
But I believe it follows the person, the human being more than it follows the
McGregor's
discipline.
the guy now. And McGregor, kudos to him. He's a character. You know, how much of that is him in real life and an act? I don't know, because I don't know the man. But you know what? He plays it well. He knows how to sell a fight. He knows how to entertain you. So give him credit for that. And let's see what's next. I think there's no chance he goes back in the boxing ring. I don't think there's any chance that happens. I think it's if he's going to continue to fight, it's going to be in MMA, and it's going to be for bigger gates and purses than he's used to getting. I don't think he'll get in unless that happens. And right now, he has the most pull that he's ever had to try and get that to happen. However they go about that, however share he gets, whether they raise prices on the pay-per-view for that, I don't know. But he has every right now to just demand the earth, the sky, the moon, everything, and see what he ends up with.
You know, it's interesting. It worked out in the big picture so well for everyone. And I think it was Mina Kimes yesterday who brought up a little bit of suspicion at that. You know, it worked out so well for everyone. Does it feel like it might have been rigged to play out this way? If this fight had ended in one round, if McGregor had looked just awful, any number of things could have happened. And I understand the inclination to say that,
right?
Because this is a sport that historically has been rife for that kind of thing. But I think I would go back to Occam's razor on this. If you just look at who is Mayweather? Mayweather is a guy who wants to win. First and foremost, wants to win. Doesn't care about knocking you out. Doesn't care about putting on a show.
Right.
Just wants to win. What was his best way to win? Exactly what he did. Let McGregor punch himself out. Let McGregor tire himself out. Get later into the fight where you know McGregor is not accustomed to going anyway.
Right.
And it's McGregor's first professional boxing match, so you don't really know what to expect coming in. So you need maybe more feeling out time than you normally would. So what I'm saying is, while I understand the inclination to say, you know, when something works out this perfectly, what probably will lift Canelo Alvarez and Golovkin coming up in a couple of weeks, and wherever McGregor goes now, it becomes even bigger. There's an inclination to say, you know, this feels rigged. I think there's also a very reasonable explanation that this just kind of worked out this way because it was the right way.
What we expected to happen happened.
Well, not what I expected to happen. I thought that he would get taken apart. I thought that McGregor would look like a fool.
Once I saw it early on that it looked like exactly what Mayweather was trying to do was feeling him out, then I did think, okay, there's going to be a few rounds because I thought first 4 rounds would be over. But I said, he's taking his time with this one. And then when you got to that 5th, 6th round and you started seeing the wear on McGregor, you were like, okay, now it's just a matter of time. When is this going to end? Because I think the 3 judges had it pretty well in favor of Mayweather, and some had an issue with that.
Right.
But there's no way McGregor was ever going to outpoint Mayweather. That was never going to happen. He was going to have to knock him out, and the score was just going to get even more and more a greater disparity if that fight kept going on 11th round, 12th round as well, or went to a decision. It would have been no decision at all.
First time skydiving? Sure is. Okay, you just open the door like this and you jump. Oh, wait. Should we be like in tandem? Tandem? That's a great idea. Are you a certified instructor? No, but I love parachutes and I love people. Here we go.
You wouldn't take